Do you remember the moment you first realized the world was not as innocent as you were taught? That behind every smile there was a calculation, behind every compliment a hidden agenda, and behind every authority figure a silent expectation that you stay obedient, predictable, harmless, because that moment, whether you noticed or not, was the moment you stepped into Machiavelli's world, a world where survival is not about goodness but about awareness, where strength is not about muscle but about understanding, and where your father, no matter how decent, how loving, how protective, forgot to tell you the single truth that governs every man who has ever risen above the rest. Life does not reward the kind, it rewards the strategic. You were raised on stories of fairness, taught to be polite, gentle, agreeable, taught to wait your turn, taught to fear conflict, taught to trust authority. You were taught to be liked. And that is why the world has spent years eating pieces of you without you noticing. Every time you silenced yourself to avoid tension, every time you put someone else's comfort above your own purpose, every time you apologized for things that weren't your fault, every time you betrayed your own potential to protect someone else's feelings, you paid a price. And the world smiled because you didn't realize you were in a transaction. Kindness without strength is a debt, and the world collects from the weak with ruthless consistency. Machiavelli understood this centuries before you were born. He understood that men do not rise because they are good. They rise because they have learned how to navigate the hidden architecture of power. They rise because they understand human nature, not as it should be, but as it truly is. And now, you're here, listening to advice your father never gave you, advice society buries under morality, advice civilization hides behind politeness, advice you were never supposed to hear because if you absorbed it too early, you would become uncontrollable. You would stop being prey. You would stop being agreeable. You would stop being predictable. You would stop being the perfect, harmless citizen that the world feeds on. Because what no one told you is that power is not something you gain. Power is something you awaken, something you excavate from deep inside the parts of yourself you were taught to repress, and to awaken it. You must first confront the darkest truth of all. People do not want you to be powerful. They want you to be useful. Think back to the earliest lessons you learned, how adults praised you when you obeyed, how teachers rewarded you when you stayed quiet, how society encouraged you to keep your head down, follow the rules, and suppress every instinct that made you bold, assertive, or dangerous. They didn't do this to protect you. They did it to control you. They did it because a predictable man is easy to manage, and a powerful man is impossible to ignore. So now, imagine you could go back and speak to your younger self. Imagine grabbing him by the shoulders, looking him in the eyes, and telling him everything your father never said, everything society never allowed, everything the world never wanted you to know. Imagine the weight that would lift from your spine when you finally whisper, "You owe the world nothing. You owe yourself everything." This is where Machiavelli begins, not with cruelty, not with manipulation, not with domination, but with awakening. Because a man cannot be ruthless with others until he stops being gentle with his own excuses. He cannot command the world until he commands his own nature. And he cannot rise until he stops waiting for permission to rise. Look at your life right now. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every frustration, every regret, every moment you felt invisible, it all traces back to one silent truth. You were never taught to protect your power. You were taught to protect your image. You were never taught to think strategically. You were taught to fit in. You were never trained to stand alone. You were trained to seek approval. And every time you did, you handed a piece of your destiny into someone else's hands. Machiavelli would have grabbed you by the throat, not physically but mentally, and shaken the illusions out of you. He would have stripped away the soft moralistic comforts you cling to. He would have forced you to confront the truth. You have been living according to rules written by people who benefit from your obedience. Your father taught you to be nice. The world taught you to be predictable. But Machiavelli teaches you to be sovereign, and sovereignty begins with this. People respect strength far more than goodness, and they follow those who control themselves before controlling others. So ask yourself, how much of your suffering came not from the world's cruelty but from your own passivity? How many times did you know what you wanted to say but swallowed the words to stay liked? How many times did you let someone walk over your boundaries because you feared the discomfort of saying no? How many goals did you abandon because you lacked the discipline to disappoint people who wanted you small? Machiavelli would tell you, that the world is not gentle with men who prioritize softness over strategy. He would tell you that every man must choose between two lives, the life where he feels safe or the life where he becomes powerful. You cannot have both. Safety is the cage. Power is what waits outside it. And if you keep living in the cage, you will never understand the raw, visceral electricity of becoming the kind of man who bends the world with his presence. Because power is not loud. Power does not shout. Power is felt. Power radiates from the man who is no longer controlled by fear, by doubt, by external validation. Power is the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who has walked through his own darkness and come out able to look the world in the eye without flinching. Your father taught you to avoid darkness. Machiavelli teaches you to walk through it with precision, because inside that darkness lies the machinery of human nature. Desire, fear, envy, loyalty, betrayal, ambition. And the man who understands these forces becomes untouchable. The man who ignores them is destroyed by them. Think about the people around you. The ones who support you do so because it benefits them. The ones who undermine you do so because your rise threatens them. The ones who ignore you do so because they don't perceive value in you. The ones who admire you do so because they see strength lacking in themselves. This is not cynical. This is clarity. This is adulthood stripped of illusion. This is the knowledge your father never spoke aloud because he himself was never taught it. And now you stand on the threshold of a transformation. Not the motivational kind, not the feel-good kind, but the Machiavellian kind. The kind where you stop being shaped by the world and begin shaping the world in response. You are about to hear 60 minutes of ruthless wisdom carved from the cold, unforgiving reality of human behavior. Wisdom designed to wake you up, strip you clean, sharpen your instincts, ignite your ambition, and turn you into the kind of man your younger self desperately needed, the kind of man your enemies will fear, the kind of man your allies will respect, the kind of man who no longer apologizes for wanting more, who no longer bends to fit the expectations of weaker minds, who no longer hides parts of himself to avoid intimidating those who refuse to grow. This is the beginning, the first fracture in the old version of you, the first moment you stop being the person others shaped and start becoming the person you choose to be, because the world does not belong to those who wait. It belongs to those who understand it. And Machiavelli spent his life understanding it. This is the knowledge you were never meant to hear. This is the truth your father never taught you. This is the entrance to the world of power. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes he has been living according to the expectations of people who never had to suffer the consequences of their advice. You are taught to be humble by those who benefit from your silence, taught to be patient by those who fear your rise, taught to forgive by those who have wronged you, taught to give more than you have by those who offer nothing in return. And somewhere deep inside you, long before you ever had the language to articulate it, something felt wrong, something felt off. Something inside you whispered that the rules you were told to follow were designed to keep you harmless, but you ignored that voice because everyone around you insisted that this was the correct way to live. You bowed to the collective fantasy. You played your role. You believed the instructions handed to you like a script meant to govern your entire existence. And now here you sit, older, wounded, aware of how much time you lost, aware of how many opportunities you surrendered, aware of how many years you spent trying to be good instead of strong. And that awareness is the first spark of power, because Machiavelli would tell you that a man cannot rise until he understands the story he was tricked into living. He must see the architecture of manipulation built around him from birth, politeness taught to make him submissive, empathy encouraged to make him self-sacrificial, self-doubt nurtured to make him compliant, shame weaponized to make him obedient. The world does not condition men to be powerful because powerful men are difficult to control. It conditions them to be useful. And usefulness is nothing but the refined form of servitude. You are told that honesty is noble. Machiavelli would tell you honesty is a luxury, strategy is survival. You were told that patience is virtuous. Machiavelli would tell you patience without purpose is disguised weakness. You were told that morality makes you good. Machiavelli would tell you morality is a tool used by those who already hold power to maintain it. And now you are beginning to understand why the people who taught you to be good never seemed to suffer the consequences of their own advice. They were not living the rules they imposed on you. They were using you. not maliciously, not violently, not even consciously, but instinctively, because human beings instinctively seek advantage, consciously seek convenience, and unconsciously exploit those who do not know how to protect their time, their boundaries, their energy, their self-respect. This is the lesson your father should have taught you but never did. You must become the guardian of your own worth. If you do not guard it, the world will drain it slowly, gently, subtly, until you wake one day with nothing left but a tired heart and a soft voice that apologizes every time it speaks. Machiavelli would take you by the wrist and drag you to the edge of your own reflection. He would force you to look not at who you pretend to be, but who you truly are beneath the layers of social conditioning. He would show you that the man inside, the hungry one, the ambitious one, the disciplined one, the cold one, the calculating one you were taught to fear, is not your enemy. He is your spine. He is your potential. He is the part of you that remembers who you could have been if the world hadn't taught you to shrink. And when you finally see him clearly, when you recognize the buried strength hidden beneath the obedient version of yourself, something inside you cracks, something old, something soft, something that was always meant to die so the real version of you could finally be born. Because the truth is simple, every man carries two selves inside him, the one shaped by society and the one shaped by his own will, and the tragedy of most men is that they live and die as the first self, never giving the second one the chance to breathe. But you are not most men. You feel the shift happening. You feel the awakening pulling you towards something sharper, colder, more disciplined, more intentional. It scares you because you were taught to fear power. But your fear is nothing but the familiar comfort of your old identity. Let it die. Let it burn, because what comes next is not cruelty. It is clarity. Clarity that reveals the ruthless truth about relationships, ambitions, reputations, alliances, and enemies. You begin to understand that people are predictable, not because they are weak, but because they are driven by primal forces: fear, desire, envy, pride, insecurity, hunger. And once you understand these forces, you stop taking things personally. You stop reacting emotionally. You stop wasting energy fighting shadows. You start thinking strategically. You start seeing patterns. You start seeing human nature with surgical precision. You start playing the game you never knew you were in. Machiavelli would whisper to you that human nature does not change. The same instincts that drove men in ancient kingdoms drive men in modern cities. The same fears that shaped rulers shape employees, leaders, lovers, rivals. And once you internalize this, you stop living blindly. You stop trusting words and start reading motivations. You stop valuing promises and start valuing patterns. You stop listening to what people say and start watching what they do. You stop wondering why someone mistreated you and start seeing the insecurity that fueled their behavior. You stop being disappointed in people because you stop expecting them to act beyond their nature. And with this new clarity, something inside you begins to settle. The confusion fades. The resentment dissolves. The pain transforms into perspective. The hurt becomes knowledge, because now you understand that the world was never against you. It was simply operating according to its nature, while you were operating according to a fantasy. You were the only one playing the wrong game. And the moment you realize this, your past suddenly makes sense. Every betrayal becomes a lesson in trust. Every failure becomes a lesson in resilience. Every rejection becomes a lesson in self-reliance. Every disappointment becomes a lesson in expectation. Every heartbreak becomes a lesson in attachment. And every moment of humiliation becomes a lesson in boundaries. Your father told you to be strong. Machiavelli tells you to become strategic. Strength without strategy becomes exhaustion. Strategy without strength becomes manipulation. But the union of the two, this is what makes a man unstoppable. This is what makes him sovereign. This is what separates the ones who rise from the ones who are forgotten. Machiavelli would look you in the eyes and tell you the truth no one else dares. You have been too easy to predict, too easy to influence, too easy to guilt, too easy to distract, too easy to control. And the world punishes the predictable. It rewards the man who becomes unreadable. The man who does not reveal his emotions to those who have not earned access to them. The man who speaks with intention, moves with purpose, acts with patience, and chooses with discipline. The man who does not crumble when people disapprove of him. The man who does not react when provoked. the man who does not waste time defending himself to minds too small to understand him, the man who does not shrink to make others feel comfortable, the man who knows what he wants and does not apologize for wanting it. This man, your future self, terrifies the world, because the world cannot control him. He is immune to manipulation, immune to peer pressure, immune to guilt, immune to the emotional games that keep most men trapped in mediocrity. And the journey to become this man begins not with external battles, but with internal mastery. Mastery of impulse, mastery of fear, mastery of attention, mastery of emotion, mastery of the self. You start to become dangerous, not when you learn to fight the world, but when you learn to stop fighting yourself. Machiavelli would teach you that your greatest enemy has never been another man. It has always been the version of yourself too afraid to claim the life you want, the version of yourself that waits for approval, the version of yourself that apologizes for wanting more, the version of yourself that plays small because he fears the responsibility of being great, the version of yourself that clings to comfort instead of embracing challenge. And now you're watching that old version crumble. You feel the shift. The ground beneath you is changing. Your instincts are awakening. Your mind is sharpening. Your gaze is hardening. You're beginning to move differently, think differently, breathe differently. You speak less. You observe more. You react slower. You plan further. You desire deeper. You expect higher. You tolerate less. You demand more, from yourself first, from others second. This is the evolution your father never taught you to initiate. This is the transformation society never wanted you to undergo. This is the rebirth Machiavelli demands, a rebirth not of morality, but of awareness. Awareness of how the world works, awareness of who you are, awareness of what you can become, awareness of the power that has been sleeping inside you since the moment you were born. And now, finally, it wakes. There is a moment in every ascent when the old world begins to pull at you with desperate hands, when the people who once shaped you feel the shift in your posture, the sharpening of your tone, the quiet confidence settling in your eyes, and they begin to fear what you are becoming. They will not articulate it, they will not say it aloud, but they feel it in their bones, the sense that you are no longer the version of yourself they could guilt, soften, suppress, or domesticate. They feel that you are slipping out of the role they assigned you, the role that kept them comfortable. And this is where Machiavelli's true lessons begin, because it is here, in this delicate and dangerous threshold, where most men retreat. They sense the discomfort of others, the tension in the air, the silent judgment, the unease that comes when you stop living the life people expect from you. And because they have never been taught otherwise, they interpret this tension as a signal to shrink. But Machiavelli would tell you that this is not a warning. This is confirmation that you are finally breaking free. He would tell you to pay attention to the resistance you feel around you, because resistance is the shadow cast by your rising power. People instinctively resist change in others, because change forces them to confront the stagnation in themselves. They want you to stay predictable, because your predictability comforts them. Your lack of boundaries validates their entitlement. Your self-doubt validates their superiority. Your silence validates their dominance. And your constant efforts to please validate their manipulation. They do not want you to become the man you are capable of being, not because they dislike your growth, but because your growth makes their excuses harder to live with. And this is the cardinal rule of human psychology. People resist not your evolution, but the reflection of themselves they see in it. Machiavelli would say that the first test of your emerging strength is how you deal with the discomfort of others. Can you continue your rise even when those closest to you feel threatened by it? Can you maintain your path even when their tone sharpens, their jokes become heavier, their silence becomes colder, their words become sharper? Because nothing exposes human insecurity like the rise of someone they never believed would surpass them. You becoming powerful disrupts the quiet hierarchy they had constructed in their minds. It forces them to rewrite their perception of you, which in turn forces them to rewrite their perception of themselves. And most people would rather pull you back down than climb alongside you. This is the moment your father never prepared you for, the moment when growth turns into confrontation, the moment when becoming strong forces you to protect your energy from those who once shaped your identity, not because they are evil, but because they are human, and humans protect their sense of stability with fierce instinct. This is why so many potential leaders, thinkers, visionaries, strategists, powerful minds never break out of mediocrity. They have the potential but lack the tolerance for social friction. They crumble under the weight of disapproval. They break under the pressure of expectation. They sacrifice their own evolution to preserve relationships that were built on the foundation of their weakness. But you are not here to preserve the old version of your life. You are here to become the architect of a new one. And every architect must learn to let go of structures that can no longer support the weight of what he intends to build. Machiavelli would tell you that one of the greatest strategic mistakes a man can make is assuming that the people who knew him before he grew will support him after he grows. Most of the time, they will not. Not because they dislike your progress, but because your progress reminds them of their paralysis. They want you familiar. They want you soft. They want you accessible, compliant, agreeable. They want the version of you they could forecast. But the man you are becoming is not predictable. He is not soft. He is not accessible. He is not easily moved by guilt, shame, social pressure, or emotional manipulation. And that unsettles them. Here is where the true psychological battle begins, within you. Because you must choose between the comfort of being understood and the power of being transformed. You must choose between belonging and becoming. Most men choose belonging. They choose the comfort of being accepted over the discomfort of rising. They choose being liked over being respected. They choose staying small over standing alone. But Machiavelli would place his hand on your shoulder and say with cold clarity that a man who fears solitude is a man who fears himself. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood. You must become comfortable with people not knowing your plans, your motives, your next move. You must become comfortable being doubted, questioned, criticized, underestimated. You must become comfortable with silence, with distance, with the temporary loneliness that comes before alliances with higher caliber individuals replace the familiarity of the old ones. Because every powerful man walks through a period where he is completely alone, not because he has no one, but because he is becoming someone. This is where your instincts sharpen, where your attention deepens, where your discipline solidifies, where your self-respect becomes non-negotiable, and where you begin to understand the true currency of power, the ability to walk away. Walking away from relationships that drain you, walking away from opportunities that insult you, walking away from conversations that diminish you, walking away from environments that suffocate you, walking away from the version of yourself that was designed to please others. The moment you master the art of walking away, the world begins to treat you differently. Because people can sense when a man will no longer bargain with his worth. Machiavelli would say that a man who cannot walk away is a man who can be controlled. And you must not be controlled, not by anyone, not by fear, not by approval, not by attachment, not by habit. Control yourself, or the world will choose someone else to do it for you. And as you undergo this transformation, another realization emerges. The realization that most of your wounds were not caused by enemies, but by people who never respected your boundaries because you never enforced them. You were taught to be generous without being taught to be discerning. You were taught to forgive without being taught to protect. You were taught to listen without being taught to filter. And because of that, you gave pieces of yourself to people who never knew what to do with them. You invested in those who saw your loyalty as a resource, not a gift. And now you begin to see those moments clearly, not with bitterness, but with strategic understanding. Because one of Machiavelli's most profound teachings is that clarity of vision requires emotional detachment, not coldness, not apathy, detachment, the ability to see things as they are, without the fog of sentiment, nostalgia, or hope. You begin to understand that some people were not meant to stay, they were meant to reveal something. They were meant to show you your blind spots, your weaknesses, your patterns, your naivete. They were meant to teach you where your boundaries were too elastic, where your trust was too unguarded, where your kindness was unreciprocated. They were lessons, not losses, and now you see the most important truth of all. You were not powerless, you were untrained. Untrained in understanding human nature, untrained in protecting your ambition, untrained in mastering your emotions, untrained in reading intentions, untrained in identifying manipulation, untrained in holding your center when the world tried to pull you off balance. And that is why Machiavelli's philosophy feels so shocking, so intense, so clarifying. Because it is not teaching you something new, it is reminding you of something ancient, something instinctual, something that was always inside you before the world tried to filter it out. A man is not born passive, he is trained into passivity. A man is not born unsure, he is conditioned into doubt. A man is not born obedient, he is rewarded into obedience. But beneath all of that conditioning lies the original blueprint: instincts designed for survival, awareness designed for protection, intuition designed for truth. And those instincts are waking up. You can feel it. You can feel yourself becoming sharper, more aware, more grounded, more impossible to deceive. You can feel your emotions becoming assets instead of liabilities. You can feel your mind beginning to analyze before it reacts. You can feel yourself observing patterns that used to overwhelm you. You can feel your presence becoming heavier, quieter, more commanding. This is the emergence of the Machiavellian mind, not cruel, but clear, not manipulative, but strategic, not heartless, but grounded, not dominating, but unshakable. And now you begin to understand the core of what Machiavelli wanted men to learn. Mastery begins with observation. You cannot control what you cannot see. And most men walk through the world half blind, seeing only what people want them to see. But you are beginning to see the fractures beneath the surface. You are beginning to see who envies you, who respects you, who fears you, who underestimates you, who competes with you, who drains you, who secretly admires you, who imitates you, who studies you. And suddenly the world becomes readable, predictable, controllable. Not because people are simple, but because their motives are. And this is where you make your first strategic shift. You stop broadcasting your thoughts. You speak less. You reveal less. You move in silence. You protect your plans like they are currency. You stop oversharing your dreams with people who lack the depth to understand them. You stop defending your choices to people who have no stake in your future. You stop leaking information that others could weaponize. You stop living for external validation, and something extraordinary happens. The less you reveal, the more powerful you appear. Because mystery is a form of dominance, predictability is a form of submission. You realize that being misunderstood is not a problem, it is protection. You realize that being underestimated is not an insult, it is opportunity. You realize that being doubted is not discouragement, it is camouflage. You realize that silence is not emptiness, it is leverage. And the moment this shift occurs, you stop seeking permission to exist. You stop apologizing for being intense, for being ambitious, for being uncompromising, for being focused, for demanding more, for wanting more, for expecting more. You stop explaining yourself because you have nothing to prove, not to the world, not to your past, not even to your father. You are no longer the son who needed guidance. You are becoming the man who carries his own. There is a point in every transformation where the world stops feeling familiar. Not because the environment changed, but because you did. Because your vision sharpened, because your instincts awakened, because the illusions that once comforted you have evaporated, leaving only the raw structure of reality, exposed and unmasked. This is the phase Machiavelli knew well, the phase where a man stands halfway between who he used to be and who he is becoming, and he realizes he can never return to the old world again. And it is in this phase that the most dangerous battles occur, not with enemies, not with rivals, not with society, but with the remnants of your former self that cling to you like ghosts. These ghosts whisper to you in moments of uncertainty, trying to lure you back into the comfortable misery you once called a life. They remind you of old habits, old beliefs, old patterns, old fears. They tell you that you are going too far, that you should slow down, that you should be careful, that you should preserve what is familiar. But Machiavelli would tell you that these whispers are not warnings, they are anchors. They exist to keep you in the past. And a man who listens to the past forfeits his future. You begin to feel the weight of the transition not only in your mind, but in your body. Your posture changes, your eyes change, your voice changes. You speak slower but with more authority. You take up space not through aggression but through presence. You look at people differently, not with insecurity, not with eagerness, not with neediness, but with calm evaluation. You begin to understand that every person you meet is either an asset, a threat, or a distraction, and this clarity does not make you arrogant, it makes you aware. Awareness is the foundation of power. Arrogance is the fantasy of men who have none. Machiavelli knew that the most powerful man is the one who perceives what others ignore, and now you see what you once missed. You see envy in compliments. You see insecurity in arrogance. You see weakness in cruelty. You see desperation in silence. You see motivation behind every gesture, every word, every hesitation, every outburst. You begin to understand that humans reveal themselves constantly, not in their speeches, but in their micro-reactions, their tones, their energy, their inconsistencies. And the more you observe, the more predictable they become, not because you are better than them, but because you finally stepped outside the illusion that people are mysteries. They are not. They are patterns. And as you rise, something else shifts. People start testing you. They probe your boundaries. They push your patience. They question your decisions. They challenge your silence. They interpret your calm as arrogance. They interpret your discipline as coldness. They interpret your lack of emotional reactivity as indifference. And with every test, you are given a choice. Return to the old version of yourself that sought to please, or solidify the new version that seeks only to evolve. Machiavelli would tell you that every test is an invitation to reveal weakness or an invitation to confirm strength. And you begin to notice something extraordinary. As you respond with quiet confidence, people shift, their tone softens, their posture changes, their behavior adjusts, not because you forced them, but because you calibrated yourself. People adapt to the man who is not moved by their tactics. They respect the man who does not bend. They fear the man who cannot be guilted, and they follow the man who knows where he is going even when they do not. You begin to understand something powerful. Leadership is not about authority. It is about direction. People sense when a man has direction, when he moves with intention, when he speaks with clarity, when he acts with purpose. They gravitate toward him instinctively, because most people are lost. Most people wander through life with no vision, no discipline, no strategy. They crave the gravitational pull of someone who is certain, even if they don't understand what he is certain about. This is where your influence begins. Not with force, not with manipulation, not with dominance, but with clarity. Clarity is rare. Clarity is magnetic. Clarity is dangerous. The clearer you become about who you are, what you want, what you will tolerate, and what you refuse to accept, the more the world reorganizes itself around you. Not because you demanded it, but because the universe responds to men who are no longer at war with themselves. And yet, this clarity brings another challenge: isolation. Not loneliness, that is emotional. Isolation, that is strategic. Machiavelli knew that every rising man eventually must step away from the noise, the crowds, the influences that distract him. He must step into the solitude where identity is forged. This solitude is not peaceful at first, it is confronting. It forces you to face your unfiltered thoughts. It forces you to confront your flaws. It forces you to acknowledge the parts of yourself you tried to ignore. And it forces you to build the discipline that no one else will ever build for you. Your father told you to be responsible. Machiavelli tells you to be self-governing. Responsibility ties you to obligations. Self-governance ties you to your destiny. When you begin governing yourself, something extraordinary happens. You no longer chase things, you choose them. You choose who enters your life. You choose what consumes your time. You choose what deserves your energy. You choose what future you are building, what habits you cultivate, what behaviors you execute. And once you realize you are the architect, instead of the passenger, life stops feeling chaotic. It becomes deliberate. But deliberate living requires sacrifice. The sacrifice of comfort, the sacrifice of approval, the sacrifice of the illusions you once depended on. Machiavelli would say that every rise demands a shedding, like a snake shedding its old skin, and this shedding is painful, not physically, psychologically, because you must let go of versions of yourself that once protected you, the version that played small to avoid conflict, the version that made jokes to avoid showing seriousness, the version that suppressed opinions to avoid judgment, the version that used humility to hide potential, the version that kept quiet to avoid envy. They must all die. A man cannot rise while carrying the corpse of his former identity. This death is not dramatic, it is subtle. It is the tightening of your standards, the quiet withdrawal from meaningless conversations, the refusal to engage in gossip, the disinterest in validation, the shift from talking to showing, the transition from explaining to demonstrating. And slowly, the old world stops recognizing you. Your past connections lose access to the new version of your mind. People who once understood you now misunderstand you. People who once advised you now fall silent. People who once had opinions about your life now hesitate, sensing the shift in your presence. This is the moment Machiavelli knew every rising man must face, the moment where he becomes misunderstood by those who remain behind. And this misunderstanding is not a curse. It is a sign that you have stepped into a realm they cannot follow. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack courage. Courage to question themselves, courage to confront their flaws, courage to reject the narratives others created for them, courage to pursue the life they secretly desire, but publicly deny. And here, in this psychological elevation, you begin to understand something profound. The world becomes quieter when you no longer seek its noise. You begin to think in long arcs, not short impulses. You begin to make decisions based on what serves your future, not what soothes your present. You begin to value peace over pleasure, clarity over entertainment, isolation over distraction, mastery over comfort. And this shift, this inner reorientation, is the moment you stop living as a character in someone else's story and start writing your own. But with this newfound power comes another truth Machiavelli warned about. The higher you rise, the more subtle the threats become. The enemies are no longer obvious. They are polite, they are friendly, they are supportive on the surface, but unsettled beneath it. They congratulate you with their mouths and resent you with their eyes. They study your moves not to learn but to anticipate your mistakes. They speak softly but think sharply, and Machiavelli would tell you, these are the people you must understand, not fear. You must read them like texts. You must interpret their intentions without reacting to their presence. Because power is not about crushing enemies, it is about rendering them irrelevant. And irrelevance is achieved through elevation, not confrontation. You rise so high, they can no longer reach you. You grow so deeply, they can no longer unsettle you. You master yourself so completely they can no longer manipulate you. You become so controlled that their chaos becomes background noise. This is the true Machiavellian advantage, not the domination of others, but the transcendence of their influence. By this stage, something inside you clicks, not loudly, but with silent certainty. You realize that you no longer fear being alone. You no longer fear being doubted. You no longer fear being whispered about. You no longer fear losing people. You no longer fear starting over. The fears that once governed you, controlled you, weakened you, have lost their power, because fear depends on attachment, and the man who is attached to nothing becomes unstoppable. It is here, in this state of internal sovereignty, that you discover what every great strategist eventually learns. The game is not outside you, it is inside you. Whoever controls your mind controls your decisions. Whoever controls your focus controls your future. Whoever controls your emotions controls your destiny. But now you control yourself, and because of that, you can finally control your world. And this is where the true rise begins. And yet, even now, as you stand on the edge of everything you have endured and everything you have learned, there is still one truth you have not fully faced. Every ascent to power brings with it an equal descent into the depths of your own nature. You cannot rise without confronting the hidden chambers of your mind, the instincts you were taught to suppress, the desires you were conditioned to deny. The world tells you to be noble, humble, and patient, but life whispers a very different truth to those who are willing to listen. It tells you that survival belongs to those who can balance mercy with ruthlessness, charm with manipulation, diplomacy with force. It tells you that power is not given to the gentle, but to those who are willing to do what gentleness cannot. And if you have truly listened to Machiavelli so far, then you know that the greatest battles are fought in silence, in the moments when no one is watching, in the private negotiations you conduct with your own conscience. You must understand something now that you were never taught at home, never guided toward by a father who wanted you safe instead of strong. The world is shaped by people who refuse to play by the rules they are handed. History does not remember the obedient. It remembers those who carve the world open with their will. Look around you. Every king, every legend, every titan you admire began as someone ordinary who simply stopped obeying the voice that told them to wait. Your downfall will never come from your enemies. It will come from the parts of yourself you refuse to confront, the hesitations, the attachments, the fears you pretend not to feel, the longing for approval, the ache for validation, the naive desire for fairness in a world built on advantage. These things are not flaws, they are chains. And the longer you cling to them, the more willingly you accept the role the world assigned you before you even learn to speak. You must let go of the idea that people want what is best for you. They want what is best for themselves, and they will call it fairness. They will call it logic. They will call it morality. They will build you a cage made of expectations and pretend it is a sanctuary. They will take your compliance as weakness, your silence as consent, your patience as submission. And the cruelest irony is that they will do all of this while smiling at you, while embracing you, while speaking to you as though they care. But Machiavelli understood better than anyone that affection is the mask human beings use to hide their hunger. Behind every smile is a calculation. Behind every compliment is a need. Behind every friendly gesture is the silent question, how can this help me? You must see the world as it is, not as you wish it would be. And the world is governed by leverage. You are respected in proportion to how difficult your loss would be. Your value grows in proportion to what you can deny others. The person who depends on you will treat you differently than the person you depend on. Never forget this. A father may teach you kindness. A society may teach you politeness. But no one teaches you the rules of predation. They let you go into the world unarmed, and then they pity you when you bleed. You will not make that mistake again. You cannot afford to. As you rise, as you grow sharper, more composed, more dangerous in your calm, you must become acutely aware of how people move around you. Watch how they speak when they want something, and how they shift when they no longer need you. Notice who calls you when you are useful, and who disappears when you are not. Pay attention to the ones who flatter you. Their praise is rarely a gift, it is a currency. They offer it because they expect a return on their investment. But pay even more attention to those who stay silent. Those who offer no applause, no validation, no open approval. These are the ones who truly see you. And some of them may fear you, others may respect you, and others may know what you are becoming. You must learn the art of being underestimated, not as a flaw but as a strategy. There is power in appearing harmless, power in seeming like you have no ambition, no sharp edges, no hunger. People reveal their secrets to the unthreatening. They show their weaknesses to the ones they assume have none. They expose their insecurities to the ones they believe cannot use them. If they think you are fragile, they will let their guard down. If they think you are simple, they will speak freely. If they think you are easily controlled, they will show you their tactics. And once you know their tactics, you own their future. You must also understand how to control your presence. Machiavelli believed that a prince must learn when to be seen and when to disappear. Too much availability breeds contempt. Too little presence breeds suspicion. Your strength lies in calculated unpredictability. If people know your patterns, they will exploit them. If they know your schedule, they will manipulate you. If they know what angers you, they will provoke you. If they know what comforts you, they will distract you. Keep your rhythm irregular. Keep your intentions opaque. Keep your reactions unreadable. Confusion is not chaos, it is leverage. And mystery is not distance, it is protection. If you ever want to win in this world, you must embrace the philosophy that no one will teach you willingly. People only respect what they cannot fully possess. To be respected, you must cultivate the art of selective closeness. Show warmth, but never neediness. Show interest, but never dependency. Show loyalty, but never blind devotion. The closer someone gets to your heart, the more carefully you must guard it. Not everyone who touches you deserves to enter you. Not everyone who understands you deserves to influence you. Not everyone who loves you deserves access to your mind. A father may teach you to love, but Machiavelli teaches you to love without losing yourself. There will come a moment when you must choose between comfort and power. You must choose between the warmth of acceptance and the cold clarity of solitude. Most people choose comfort. Most people choose belonging. Most people choose the soft prison of being understood rather than the sharp freedom of becoming formidable. But you are not most people. You would not be here if you were. You would not be seeking forbidden knowledge if you were content with ordinary guidance. You would not still be listening now, at this point in the journey, unless something inside you was beginning to awaken, the part of you that is tired of shrinking, tired of apologizing, tired of waiting for someone to hand you permission to become dangerous. That awakening is not a feeling, it is a decision. It is a moment when you realize that your old self, the one who depended too much, trusted too easily, forgave too quickly, must die for the new self to be born. This is not cruelty, it is evolution. The snake does not shed its skin because it hates the old one. It sheds it because growth demands it. You must shed your innocence. You must shed your naivety. You must shed your fear of being misunderstood. Only then will your mind sharpen enough to grasp the world as it actually works. You must learn to observe human nature the way a hunter observes terrain. Every person around you has a motive. Every motive has a weakness. Every weakness has an opportunity. The naive try to change people. The wise learn how to use people as they are. This is not manipulation, it is alignment. You cannot expect loyalty from the selfish. You cannot expect consistency from the unstable. You cannot expect honesty from the envious. But you can expect predictable patterns. And predictable patterns can be used to build empires. You must also understand the psychology of fear. People fear those who can expose them. They fear those who cannot be swayed. They fear those who carry themselves with quiet certainty. Fear is not about threats, it is about perception. You do not need to raise your voice to be intimidating. You do not need to dominate a room to command it. Power is not shown through aggression, it is shown through restraint. The one who chooses silence when others expect rage becomes the most dangerous person in the room. But do not misunderstand. Ruthlessness is sometimes necessary. Not cruelty, not malice, but decisiveness. The ability to cut ties without hesitation. The ability to end relationships when they become liabilities. The ability to remove yourself from environments that shrink you. The ability to deny someone access even when you still feel affection. This is the cost of becoming formidable. You must be willing to break your own heart before you allow someone else the privilege. This is the difference between the weak and the powerful. The weak react. The powerful decide. As you rise, the world will try to pull you back. Those who once cheered your growth will become unsettled by your evolution. Those who once admired your potential will become threatened by your transformation. They will accuse you of changing. They will say you are cold. They will say you are distant. They will say you are selfish. And in a way, they will be right. Because to grow is to change. And to change is to leave behind the version of you that made them comfortable. You must not apologize for outgrowing the cage they built around you. You must not apologize for refusing to remain small. You must not apologize for embracing the parts of yourself that were once forbidden. If they cannot walk with you into your new life, then they were never meant to survive your evolution. Machiavelli believed that a prince must learn to become both lion and fox, brutal enough to defend what is his, cunning enough to see danger before it emerges. You must sharpen both sides of your nature. Be gentle in your empathy, but merciless in your boundaries. Be kind in your intentions, but precise in your decisions. Be open in your curiosity, but guarded in your trust. The world rewards balance, not extremity. But balance requires discipline, and discipline requires a willingness to stand alone. There will come a moment very soon when someone tests your resolve. It may be a friend who tries to guilt you. It may be a partner who tries to emotionally manipulate you. It may be a colleague who tries to control you through subtle intimidation. And in that moment you will feel the old instincts rise, the instinct to appease, to smooth things over, to comply. But you must remember everything you have learned. You must remember the silence of a father who never taught you how to defend yourself. You must remember the nights you spent wondering why being good was not enough. You must remember the years you wasted believing that patience would bring you salvation. And you must choose differently this time, because the world does not reward the good. It rewards the strategic, and this journey is not over. You still have one final ascent to make, one final transformation, one final truth to confront. Everything you have learned has been preparing you for the moment when innocence dies and clarity is born. But now you stand at the threshold of the final truth, the one Machiavelli reserved only for those who had already crossed the internal desert of fear, self-betrayal, confusion, and awakening. Every step you have taken has brought you nearer to this moment, nearer to seeing the world not as a battlefield of enemies and allies, but as a stage of perpetual performance where every person wears a mask, and every mask hides a motive. And yet there is still one last veil to tear away, one final illusion that even the strongest resist, because accepting it requires the death of every excuse you have ever used to protect your weaker self. The illusion is simple, that power is found in the world outside you, that it is held by kings, by corporations, by governments, by the wealthy, by those who inherited empires or conquered nations. But the truth the brutal, unfiltered, merciless truth, is that power begins in the mind of the individual who refuses to be ruled by anything, including himself. You must understand this now. The greatest tyrant in your life has never been another person. It has always been the frightened voice inside you that begged you to stay small, stay quiet, stay predictable, stay obedient. You are not held down by your enemies. You are held down by your hesitation. You are not weakened by your failures. You are weakened by the meaning you attach to them. And you are not betrayed by the world. You are betrayed by the parts of yourself that clung to comfort instead of clarity, belonging instead of transformation, and safety instead of sovereignty. Machiavelli never wrote for the masses. He wrote for the ones who dared to confront themselves, for the ones whose minds were strong enough to endure the weight of reality, for the ones who understood that morality without strategy is fragility, and strategy without self-command is chaos. He wrote for the future rulers of their own lives, not for the observers who would spend eternity drifting between indecision and regret. That is why you are here. You are not drawn to his darkness for entertainment. You are drawn to it because it mirrors something inside you, something dangerous, something wild, something wise, something ancient, the part of you that has been sleeping, and now you cannot afford to sleep any longer. Because the world you are stepping into is not gentle, it is not forgiving, it is not designed for your comfort. It is designed to test the depth of your resolve every time you breathe. People will try to control you not because they hate you, but because controlling others makes them feel less powerless themselves. They will try to shape you into someone manageable, someone predictable, someone whose emotions can be exploited and whose ambitions can be tamed. And they will do this not through open conflict, but through subtle guilt, through emotional hooks, through expectations disguised as affection. The chains that bind you will not be metal. They will be psychological, invisible, soft, kind. You must learn to see through them. The moment someone tries to guilt you, it is a confession of their intent to control you. The moment someone gets angry at your boundaries, it is a confession that they benefited from your lack of them. The moment someone criticizes your ambition, it is a confession of their fear that you might become someone they can no longer influence. Machiavelli understood that people reveal more in their reactions than in their words. If you wish to rise, watch how they respond to your strength. The ones who cheer your growth are rare, the ones who fear it are many, and the ones who quietly resent it are the most dangerous of all. This final stage of your transformation will demand that you do something most people never do. Separate love from loyalty, affection from influence, and comfort from truth. You must learn that you can care for people while still refusing to let them steer your life. You can love someone without surrendering your ambition. You can respect someone without letting their fears become yours. You can be devoted without being obedient. The world will confuse these things on purpose. Weak people want you emotional because emotion clouds judgment. They want you attached because attachment prevents clarity. They want you predictable because predictability makes you easy to control. But you must become something else entirely. You must become a force that moves without asking permission, a mind that thinks without seeking approval, a presence that exists without apologizing. You must become the kind of individual whose silence is more intimidating than another person's shouting, whose calm is more unsettling than another person's anger, whose ambition is so deeply rooted that no rejection, no betrayal, no disappointment can pull it out. You must become the person who is not shaped by circumstances, but shapes circumstances themselves. Look at your life now. Think back through every betrayal you survived, every heartbreak that cracked you open, every humiliation that burned through your chest like fire. You thought those moments were destroying you, but they were carving you into someone who could withstand the truth you are hearing now. Without those wounds, you would not have the capacity to understand the psychology of power. Without those nights of doubt, you would not have the resilience needed to hold yourself together when others want you broken. Without the silence of a father who never taught you what you needed, you would not have developed the hunger to learn what the world never intended you to know. This hunger is your advantage. Most people never question the lives they are handed. They never interrogate the beliefs they inherited. They never challenge the limitations others built around them. But you did. You questioned your upbringing. You questioned your fears. You questioned your narrative. You questioned the morality that taught you to be harmless instead of powerful. And every question brought you closer to the person you were meant to become, the person who refuses to be a victim of conditioning, circumstance, or emotional manipulation. Machiavelli believed that the strongest individuals were the ones who understood the world in its raw form, without illusion, without sentimentality, without denial, not because life should be lived without emotion, but because emotion without awareness becomes a weapon others use against you. He taught rulers to understand fear, not as something to inflict, but as something to master. He taught them to understand respect, not as something given freely, but as something earned through the cultivation of inner authority. And he taught them to understand love, not as a weakness, but as a force that must be directed strategically if it is to remain pure. The time has come for you to understand these lessons, not as theories, but as tools. You must learn to stand in a room and feel everything, the envy, the admiration, the insecurity, the manipulation, without being moved by any of it. You must learn to see people's intentions before they speak them, to detect the tremors of their ego before they erupt, to sense the shifts in their behavior before they can even articulate why they shifted. This is not paranoia, it is perception. And perception is the seed of power. You must also learn to walk away without explaining yourself. The moment you justify your boundaries, you have already surrendered them. The moment you defend your choices, you have already weakened them. The moment you ask for understanding, you have already positioned yourself below the person whose understanding you seek. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is strategy. And walking away is not weakness. Walking away is the declaration that you will not participate in battles that shrink your soul. But the hardest lesson, the one you avoided your entire life, is this: to rise, you must be willing to disappoint people. You must be willing to be misunderstood, resented, blamed, feared, even hated. Not because you seek these things, but because you refuse to sacrifice your evolution for the comfort of others. The greatest leaders in history were not the most loved. They were the most self-commanded. And the most self-commanded were often the most alone. This loneliness is not a punishment. It is a rite of passage. It is the universe clearing the path so that no one blocks the person you are becoming. It is the space in which your old identity dissolves and your new identity emerges. It is the silence in which power takes shape. And once you walk through it, once you embrace the solitude instead of resisting it, once you see it not as emptiness but as clarity, no force in the world will be able to break you again. You must now decide who you are going to be, not in theory, not in imagination, but in reality. Will you be a person defined by fear or a person defined by will? Will you be someone who reacts or someone who chooses? Will you be shaped by the wounds of your past or sharpened by them? Will you remain chained to the expectations of others or rise above them with ruthless self-direction? Will you continue to wait for guidance that never came, or will you become the guide you always needed? Because everything you have heard, everything you have learned, everything you have endured, has been leading you to one unavoidable truth: no one is coming to save you. There is no mentor who will arrive at the perfect moment, no parent who will finally understand, no friend who will carry you to greatness. There is only you, your mind, your ambition, your discipline, your hunger, your strategy, your will. And if you dare to use them, if you dare to step into the world with your eyes open and your spirit sharpened, if you dare to seize the life you have always been capable of living but never permitted yourself to claim, then everything changes. Not gradually, instantly. The moment you claim your own authority, the world must adapt to you. So this is your moment. This is the threshold. This is where the old version of you dies and the new version emerges. This is where you stop waiting and start acting. This is where you stop hiding and start commanding. This is where you stop apologizing and start becoming. And now that you have heard the truth, the real truth, the forbidden truth, the truth your father never taught you, the truth society never wanted you to learn, you must choose what to do with it. Do not close this. Do not walk away gently. Do not let this be another moment in your life that you understand but do not use. Stand up, straighten your spine, look at the world with new eyes, and go become the person they never warned you could be.